I'm thinking there are going to be some of you ladies who can totally relate to this story. It goes a little something like this. So, have any of you ever gotten onto that so-called hamster wheel of life? Yeah, it's where you get on there and you start doing a little jog, okay? And everything seems to be going real well. And you start like running a marathon on that hamster wheel. And you're thinking, I don't feel tired. I'm doing pretty good here. So I'm just going to keep going. So you keep going, you're running and running until all of a sudden you smack yourself right into a wall. You fall off the hamster wheel onto the floor and you stay there for about 6 weeks. And it's interesting because once you actually fall off that hamster wheel and you actually get a chance to be still on that floor, you get a chance to start thinking about things in your life. And I feel like there's a lot of things that get us on a hamster wheel and a lot of things that take us off. And they're all completely different, but the things that we can do to help manage ourselves and put ourselves in a better direction really comes down to a lot of the same kind of things. So here in a nutshell is basically what happened to me. I gave you the hamster wheel analogy, okay? But in real life, this past spring, okay, I felt great. I felt full of energy. I felt like I had so many great ideas to share on my channel. So many ideas for videos, and I just burned and churned, and because I was like, I got this energy, let's go. And so I made and put out as many videos in a month and a half this spring as I normally would put out in 3.5 months. And when I was doing it, I felt great until I hit that wall and I fell off the hamster wheel. And I was like, I feel like doing absolutely nothing. And like I told you in my past video, I had weeks and still am on the border of having those feelings where there are days I don't want to pick up a camera at all. And even though I love what I do, when you get to that point where you are burned out in whatever it is you're doing in life, even the things that you used to like to do, you don't want to do anymore. Besides burning myself out on churning out videos, Bentley got sick. We had to take him to the emergency vet down in the Villages because he was, and I don't want to get too gross here, but he was throwing up blood. I just was so worried about him because I thought, oh my God, something bad, okay? Like that does not usually bring a good sign to it, right? So we had to take him into emergency. He had to be there for over a day. He had to have the whole IV medicines and all that. And we ended up finding out that he has this HGE. And it's not a big deal if you get it taken care of. If you let it go, it keeps getting worse. It's kind of like a UTI. If you've ever had a UTI, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no way it's going away on its own. You got to get yourself some antibiotics and maybe some little pain medication because it just keeps getting worse over time. This is the same thing. The HGE, if you don't do anything about it, can be fatal. So we brought him home. He wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking. So I had to literally feed him every half hour, little bit at a time, water and baby food, chicken and beef baby food in a syringe, okay, to make sure he was getting some kind of nourishment. That went on the first bout of it was a week. And until he started feeling better and acting better and finally eating on his own. Then 2 weeks later, it happened again. So that's the story. He's going to be fine, okay? He's just got to he's like an old man dog now. I got to give him Pepsid AC every day, and he's got some other probiotic medication he needs to take for his stomach. And I've gotten some things so that when he gets stressed out, the stress also doesn't start up that HGE again too. So you had the work, you had Mr. Bentley in the ER vet ER 2 times and all the stuff that went along with trying to get him better. You had us packing up and getting the house closed down in Florida to get ready to leave. So everything kind of hit at one time. And so here we are. I have been slowly finding some things that have been taking me out of that situation that I wanted to share, because no matter what your situation is, maybe you might find these things helpful to consider for yourself. So one thing I found that has been totally nurturing for my soul anyway is to get myself out into nature. Just that quiet, still time, listening to the birds, the smells around you in nature. It really just does something for you. And for me, I start out my mornings that way because that's when it works for me. But that doesn't work for everybody. So find time in your day, whether it's lunchtime and you get outside on your lunch hour, whether it's taking a walk after dinner time. It really just does something to kind of calm my system, to get away from chaos and get out where I can just have my own thoughts and be by myself. But I am going to say it's not all perfect. Look at, you got lawn people, you got beeping of trucks, you got all kinds of stuff, even in this kind of environment. All to say, you do the best you can. And if you live in the middle of a big city and just getting out to a park and enjoying the sights around you, really pay attention to the detailing on the trees, to the little critters running around you. It just takes somehow your mind off of your own garbage and really just has you focus on, wow, there are things way bigger than my issues in the world. There are way better things to focus on than what I'm spending time focus on. So get yourself out. And if walking is just too hard for you, you have got medical issues and it's just not doable, go somewhere and sit out in nature. Drive to a park and just go sit on a bench and enjoy the surroundings. I'm telling you what, it really is a great way, I found, for me to start my day for sure. Another thing I found to be super helpful lately, and this is something new for me, I just started reading this book called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it really is a great book for anyone who's feeling stuck, blocked somehow, and you just feel like you're in a funk. I came across this book by coincidence, and we all know what coincidence means. That was definitely God's hand bringing me this book when I needed it. And one of the things it has you do to really declutter your mind, and you'll have to tell me if you have the same thing happen to you. But when I wake up in the morning, there's all these thoughts, right? Of what happened yesterday, who said this, and just a lot of it tends to be negative, right? It could be, oh, I didn't say this and I should have. I didn't get my list done yesterday. It's all the stuff. And I would find before that I would just circulate the stuff around in my head all day. It would never really leave. It would just stay there, and maybe not be prominent, but throughout the day, here comes the same thoughts again, right? And so this book, one of the things it's having me do is they call it the morning pages. There's really two ways you could do this. I do it a different way, and I'll explain that way in a second. But basically, you get up in the morning, maybe it could be while you're sitting and having your coffee. And if you are a writer, you like to journal, whether it just be getting a cheapy notebook, from Walmart, or if you want to get artistic and you want a nice fancy journal, basically what you want to do is just write in the morning. Write out 3 pages, keep going. And it could just be random thoughts. It doesn't need to be perfect. It can be totally messy. It could be phrases. It's just really taking and clearing out whatever the chatter is in your mind and getting it out of your head and somewhere else. right? To free up the space, to have other positive thoughts, creative thoughts come into your mind. Well, I'm not really a journaler because I focus more on messing up the pages and not having it look a certain way or whatever. Journaling doesn't work for me. What I do for myself is I call it the thought dumping, the morning thought dump. And I have an app on my phone. It's called Voxer. And what you can do is record notes to yourself, oral notes to yourself. Now, there could be different, apps out there. You might have another way that you can do this, but it's something that then can record all of these thoughts that way and get them out of my mind. So when I come out on my morning walk, that is one of the first things that I do. I take all those thoughts out in the morning and just orally dump it, And I have really found what a difference that is making because it's decluttering my brain first thing in the morning, getting rid of all that garbage and almost just starting fresh, allowing positive thoughts to come in, creative thoughts to come in, different ideas to finally come back in without this just mess of things going on in your mind. So, so helpful. Like I say, I wish I would have known about this a long time ago, but it's really been worth it. One thing I found that really works for me, and it might sound weird, okay? But every morning when I sit down with the Bible, I always pray that God would lead me to whatever He wanted me to read that day, what He wanted me to focus on, what He wanted me to see. And I love my Joyce Meyer Bible because she has a lot of commentary that when I'm reading the verses and I'm like, no clue what that means for my life, I have no idea what I just read, then there's a lot of her commentary that are by those verses. So it's like, oh, in, Proverbs 29:18, this is what that meant, and I was like, it just helps me understand it better. That way I know like, oh, okay, now I can see how I could apply that in my life. So for me, that works. You have to go with whatever kind of Bible works for you. But I will sit down and ask God to lead me every morning. And I have the Bible in my lap and I have it closed. And it is amazing because I'll sit there and all of a sudden I will get a book name that comes into my head in a verse. And lo and behold, I'll go there and I'm going, oh my gosh, really? Like I needed that today. And so I just feel like, wow, that's exactly what God wanted me to see for that day. Sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to rest, to get up off that hamster wheel and take a break. And I think we live in a world where it's all about producing, accomplishing. Why is it at the end of that accomplishment, or at the end of that day when you cross 20 things off your list, there's still these times that you just don't feel happiness. You don't feel at peace. You don't feel joy. Maybe just accomplishing things isn't all there is about this life. Maybe it's time to adjust the schedule. Maybe you need to just worry about the main things on that schedule and throw everything else to the wayside and allow yourself more time to just enjoy those little things in life. You know how meals are always better when they're seasoned properly? Anything tastes better with the right seasoning on it. Think of your life the same way. Maybe it's time to just think small at first, like, hey, let's go check out that new restaurant that we've been talking about for months, but we just haven't made time to go. Maybe go explore a new coffee shop. Maybe go take a walk in nature somewhere that you've been thinking about, but you just haven't made the time for. Maybe there's a new store that just opened and you're like, at one point, I'm gonna get there and check it out. Sometimes just adding these little things that are out of the normal for us gives you that little spice in your life. So I hope my story of what has been happening for me has been helpful for you, and maybe me sharing some things that I've been doing myself will be beneficial for you as well. So as for me, I am still taking some time to rest. I feel like I want to come back officially, the fashion stuff, when I feel really ready to come back, because I don't want to burn myself out again. I've learned a lot of lessons here. And one of them is, even if you feel great, you cannot keep going on that hamster wheel. At some point, you have to give yourself a break. Until next time, my friends, you stay beautiful on the inside and out.